This is a self-grading, a self-graded assessment. What kind of Christian are you? What is the quality of material with which you are building your relationship to Christ? You are building your spiritual life. Grades have always been important to me. I enrolled in August or September. I enrolled somewhere in education 25 straight years, a quarter of a century. And I wanted to make a good grade in every course, in every subject I ever took. In one of my courses in seminary, I took a course called Principles of Teaching. That's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to teach the Bible. I wanted to teach it in a church context, but I also wanted to teach it in a college or seminary context. I got a B in Principles of Teaching. Now, you may like getting B's. I despised getting B's. I think about that every time on Thursday I fly to Corpus Christi and teach a group of seminary students. Dr. Williams gave me a B in Principles of Teaching. I made a contract with my class this semester. I taught an Old Testament class in the book of Exodus. In the syllabus I said, here's what you do. They knew from the get-go what grade they would get according to what they were willing to do. I said to them, you read 700 pages in Exodus commentaries, and you make at least 70 on the one exam you'll have, mid-semester exam, and you'll get a C. You read those 700 pages, you type me 7 two-page reading critical analyses of that reading, and you make an 80 on the one exam, and you'll get a B. You read those 700 pages, turn in those 7 two-page reading reports, and you make a good term project to me, a research project, and you make 90 or above on the test, and you'll get an A. You could have made 105 on the exam. It had a bonus question. I had a student who made 100 on that exam and got a C in that course. He knew from the first day of class what the requirement, the responsibility was. And he chose, I don't know if he read anything or not, but he chose no reading report turned in, no project done. He made 100 on the exam, but when accountability time came, he made a C in my course, and I promise you he wasn't happy. I can guarantee you he wasn't happy about it. I know for certain he wasn't very happy about it, but he knew from the beginning the accountability grading scale. And one day we will all get a report, and it wasn't TICO. I saw your smiling face and had to make sure he made a higher grade than that. For certain. Good student here. And congratulations on your graduation from Logston Seminary in Abilene. Though you didn't go to the ceremony, congratulations. Now, where was I? Near the end. Not quite. Here's the grading scale. We will all get an ultimate report card from Jesus one day. And here's what you have to do. To get either a D, a C, a B, or an A. Here's kind of the idea of what it's going to be like when we all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. Paul said some people build their lives with hay or straw. Hay or straw. That's D-level work in my judgment. Folks that are going to get a D one day from Jesus are these kinds of folks. Folks who know that the Bible is the Word of God may believe it. But the Bible, praying to God, church, I can take it or leave it. It's frankly not that important to me. I'm aware of it. I know that prayer is talking to God. I know that church is where the people of God gather, but that's not really important to me. And these folks live maybe at times wanting to do good stuff, but they have an absolute absence of spiritual vitality or power or moral courage, and so as a result, they find their lives burdened down with habits, with attitudes, with lifestyles that they know make a loving, holy God pretty unhappy with them. And they think about God only in a crisis. They call out the name of God maybe only in a profane way and only want to pray to God when I've got this absolutely difficult dilemma that I can't handle. And God, please rescue me out of this mess I've made of my life. They'll be in heaven. They'll be in heaven. But with a grade, I think, closer to a D. What about a C? Well, I think these are folks who believe that Bible and praying and church are somewhat important. And I'll drop in every now and then to church to make sure they don't believe I've died or moved out of state. But it's not anything that's really significant to my life. And listen to this. These folks have just enough knowledge of God to be judgmental and hypercritical of others. That is, I know just enough about God to know that my neighbor or my friend or my classmate or my colleague at work is a more horrible person than I am. You see, I know enough about the standards of God to know how to be real critical and condescending and cutting of others. And these are folks who don't really serve God because that's what they pay other people to do. No, don't ask me to serve anybody like students. That's Jason's job. We pay him to do that. Don't ask me to serve with kids. That's Jennifer Evans' job. We pay her to do that. An absence of service because we pay somebody else to do it. And one day these folks will be in heaven. But because of the building material with which they've constructed their life, they'll get a grade commensurate with what they did. How about a B? Now, these folks are very faithful in church attendance. They love to come to church. And they're in church a lot. And they minister to others. They serve others in some way. Mostly others inside the church because they feel a little bit awkward of relating to people who don't share their faith. These are folks who really love God and are faithful in church attendance, but don't much have meaningful relationships with people who are not Jesus followers because they don't know what to do with them, or how to talk to them, or how to minister to them. They're comfortable inside this circle of love at church. They make some investment of time and money, but they have a hard time applying their Christian experience with others. Now for an A. For an A, here's where it is, I think. People who will one day get an A from Jesus on that ultimate report card are folks who've built this kind of life. They have a priority, I've said, of corporate and private worship. They love to worship God with others. They love to sing praise to God and gather in a worship center somewhere and rejoice in who God is. But they sense that one time, 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week is not enough for me to be in the presence of God. And so these folks, in addition to worshiping with others, spend time reading the Bible, praying to God, in a genuine one-on-one time alone with God. And out of that private worship and public worship comes a moral courage and power with which to live their lives. Encountering the presence of God is meaningful because it reminds them of who God is and what He wants from them and how they can love Him and serve Him and live in His world reflecting His love. These are folks who are not judgmental, hypercritical. Rather, they are loving and redemptive. They're not the ones who are always talking about this one or that one who made a mistake or who failed or who's rotten, but are persons who are more loving and helping a reconciling kind of thing to take place. These are folks who don't just spend some time and money, but they make a strong investment of time and give a proportion of what God blesses them with materially. It reminds them, it reminds God of how good He has been to them. And these are folks who are not shy, reluctant, awkward in relating to others, but in a natural way are able to say to anyone at any time, here's what Jesus means to me. Here's how He has changed my life. And so, guys, as you take off to build your life beyond high school, you may receive other report cards in higher education, but the most important report card you'll ever receive is the one you'll get from Jesus. And that's true for all of us. Well done, good and faithful servant. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 3, it depends on how you build your life. And then he says, some will be in heaven, not by the hair of their chinny chin chin, but by the skin of their teethy teeth teeth. That's what he means when he says, the quality of building your spiritual life has not been superior. You'll make it to heaven, but barely. Folks who are living a D life, maybe we'll hear God say, done. Folks who are living a C life may indeed hear God say, done, servant. Those who are living a B life may indeed hear God say, done, good and faithful servant. Only those who are living an A life, A-list with God, will hear Him say, well done. Well done, good and faithful servant. And I got to tell you, grades have always been important to me. That one is the most important grade to me. I've always wanted to get good grades. And I promise you, I want to get an A. I may not, but I want to. I want to get an A from Jesus. And so I want to build my life knowing what it takes, knowing the work and effort expended when the accountability time comes to get an A. How about you? What kind of Christian